Alrighty, let's get going here. Welcome into the stream. Cardinals, well, they played tonight. They did. Played against the Cubs. It went the way that it went, and we'll talk about it on this edition of Busch Daily Live. I just need a moment, as per usual, to pull up the stream so I can see you guys, and if there's a chat going on so I can see that. What's up, Drew, Curtis, Nimbus with the eye emoji? It tells me you're locked in. I like that. Like the stream, guys, if you could. If you could put a little likey like on the stream, that would be so nice. It's later than we usually do these, so I'm not expecting maybe as much action as usual, but that's okay. I was going to have to do the podcast anyway, and as long as the technology works, I am going to do it live. We'll do it live, as Bill O'Reilly once said. Bill O'Reilly? Is that who said that? I think that's right. It's been a while since I've thought about that name. Yeah, Bill O'Reilly. Right? We'll do it live. And then he said some other stuff that I won't say. We'll keep it PG-13 on the stream, but you guys might know the reference. Alrighty. Thank you guys for liking the stream. Dylan, that helps as well. Yeah, the foam finger. Number one. I heard some Cardinal fans were telling Arenado tonight at Busch, "You're number one." That's what they told him, right? Maybe not. Welcome into the stream, guys, as we're coming in here, and we'll get going in just a couple of minutes. We'll give everybody a minute to settle in. So if you got a question, if you have thoughts, get them in now. We're going to talk about a few different things. I'll give the rundown. Talk about the game, obviously, and how Kyle Hendricks happened as he always seems to against this Cardinals team. And I also want to talk about the Iván Herrera thing. The Cardinals announcing today that they were going to option him or keep him, really, in AAA Memphis because it's where he's been rehabbing, but they're not bringing him back at the time. And I'll talk about why I was not really surprised by that, but I saw a lot of people on Twitter were either surprised on it or they didn't like it. Let me know, too, if you can see me and hear me. That's something I usually say at the beginning, and I didn't say it this time. Brett, what's going on? Mr. Intensity is in the house. That is a very intense YouTube name. Let me know if the tech is working. Allison, hey, can you let me know? Do you see me? Do you hear me? I know the video quality is always pretty poor. I'm going to get myself a new camera at some point. But as long as you can hear me okay, that's really what I'm waiting for to get started. If there's anything I need to change, I'm happy to do it. But just let me know if you can see me and hear me. Once I get some sort of confirmation from somebody. Okay, there we go. Thank you, Allison. One of our great channel members. Yeah, I think people are upset. This is going to be a more intimate gathering, I can tell. A little later at night, people are mad about the way the game went. Really, the last 3 games. Excuse me. And so it might be a little intimate, which means your chance to get into the live chat, I mean, you'll never have a better chance for me to actually see your comment. So hit subscribe on the channel if you're a new viewer of the channel. In order to comment in the live chat, I think I set it up this way. You just have to subscribe is all you got to do. Hunter, what's going on? Daniel's here. Justin's here. Appreciate you guys for commenting. Okay, I'm going to get started here in just a second. And like I said, if you have comments, that's great. If not, I can carry it tonight because I'm going to talk Kyle Hendricks. I'm going to talk Iván Herrera / Pedro Pajes. Damian is ready for a B sesh. Let the hate flow through you, I suppose. But there's a couple of things I was going to want to talk about anyway, so I figured I could just do it live. And then it'll keep me honest to not procrastinate and like pause to watch a TikTok in the middle of the podcast or something. So I figured this is a fine way to do it. All right. We're just going to fire this thing off. I will be talking. You will be sitting there, and that will be great. Let me know, though. You can comment, and if you've got questions, this is a night where I'll probably see them because we won't have as many people in here, and that's okay. All right. Making sure I have it on. We're locked and loaded on my local recording. I will put this on the Busch Daily Podcast feed, which, by the way, today, new podcast drop with myself and Josh Jacobs. If you guys listen to Dealing the Cards podcast, we started a new podcast. We're going to do it on Fridays. talking Cardinals, but it'll be on my YouTube channel right here, and it'll also be on the Be Schaeffer Daily Spotify feed, which is great and still growing, even though we're doing YouTube. I love that people are still listening on Spotify. That makes me happy. Okay, so check that out if you haven't, but we'll get into it now in 3, 2, 1. What's going on, everyone, and welcome in to this edition of Be Schaeffer Daily Live. Brenden Schaeffer here with you, evening hours of July 12th, 2024. It's a Friday night. Cardinals Cubs at Busch. They kick off a 4 games in 3 days mega series. And you look at that pitching matchup. And I said this on the big show earlier this afternoon. And I believed it when I said it. Maybe it sounded bold, but to those who have seen Kyle Hendricks pitch against the Cardinals before, it shouldn't have sounded bold. I said a matchup of the Cardinals' number 1, Sonny Gray, and a guy who's not really even in the Cubs rotation, Kyle Hendricks, and his ERA is 7.5, and Sonny Gray's ERA is like 3. And pretty much unequivocally, you felt like coming in, at least I did, that the Cubs had the pitching matchup advantage. It sounds heinous. It sounds ridiculous. It's also true. There is no rhyme or reason to it. The Cardinals can't hit Kyle Hendricks. They can't. They certainly cannot score against Kyle Hendricks. They had a few hits. They scatter them. They did a nice job of getting to first base. And then they kind of stand there, look pretty. It was one of those games again. Kyle Hendricks had his way. And in the years where he was good, it was frustrating, but it was understandable because he was good. Little fun fact, did you know Kyle Hendricks has never made an all-star team? Found that out this week. I guess I realized it this week. He had a year where he led the league in ERA at 2.13, didn't make an all-star team that year in 2016. That's just a fun fact. If you needed to hold something over Kyle Hendricks on a night like this, you could say, haha, you've never been on an all-star team, but I don't think he much cares. He beat the Cardinals tonight, as did the Cubs, 5-1 at Busch Stadium. Kyle Hendricks, 7 innings, no runs, 5 hits allowed, 1 walk allowed, 3 strikeouts. He improves to 2-7 on the season, lowers his season-long ERA from 7.53 to 6.78. I mean, that's pretty heinous. 90 pitches through 7. He was efficient. Like, you know what it is to face Kyle Hendricks anymore, but for some reason, while every team in MLB is able to pummel the guy this year, you just knew the Cardinals wouldn't be able to. And I've got a fun picture loaded up for the repost of this because I'll put this audio out on YouTube and on Spotify for anybody that might have missed the live stream. Of Brandon Crawford, did you see the shot? I tweeted it out. Of Brandon Crawford, he's wearing the Fred Bird bandana and sitting there on the dugout railing, just kind of contemplating life. And he's just got that look, and I thought, he's sitting there thinking, guys, what are you doing? Kyle Hendricks has a 7.5 ERA. What's going on here? Like, in my head, that was what made me chuckle. That had to be what Brandon Crawford was sitting there thinking, because he's new to this. He's a little new here, right? He's been in the Giants organization all those years. He doesn't know the hold that Kyle Hendricks has over the Cardinals. He's not been around for it until this year, and now he got to experience it firsthand. Hendricks, when he pitched in relief a few weeks ago, remember that was the game. I forget who the starter was, forgive me, but he was injured early in the game, had to leave the game. And you're thinking, well, that stinks. I mean, you hate to see a guy get hurt. But you're also kind of going, all right, Cardinals' chance to get into that Cub bullpen. You know, maybe they're going to do some damage here. This could be interesting. Let's see what they can come up with. And then it was at Wrigley. You remember? They opened up the ivy, the dugout, not the dugout, the bullpen, and out comes Kyle Hendricks looking unassuming and innocent as can be. And you're like, oh, bleep. This is not going to be good because you just know the way it goes. And he stymied the Cardinals for 3-4 innings of long relief, whatever it was. And that happened at Wrigley. And now you have a 4-game series in 3 days. So you know, all right, he's going to have a chance to pitch probably because even though he's maybe not in their regular rotation, you know, they're going to have to come up with an answer. Cardinals thought they were getting away with it by getting to avoid Justin Steele, Shota Imanaga in this series. No. That's not the way this works. It's so funny, too, because I'm looking at Kyle Hendricks' splits page on Baseball Reference. And before today, he had a lifetime 2.62 ERA against the Cardinals. And I'm trying to see, like, he's got some good numbers against some other teams too, but he hasn't faced those teams as often. The teams that he's faced at least 10 times, the D-backs, 4.5 ERA against him. Braves, 7.7 ERA against him. White Sox, 4.75. Reds, 4.26. Rockies, 4.19. Faced the Brewers a ton, 3.79. And that makes sense. Like, he's been in the Central. He's been good against divisional opponents. Pirates, same thing, 3.81. That's pretty good numbers. Padres, pretty good, 3.27 ERA against them. The Giants are the only team that he's faced a bunch that he's got better numbers against them than he does the Cardinals. 89 innings against the Giants, career 2.33 ERA. Riddle me that. But against the Cardinals, 172 innings, and he pitched 7 more tonight. 179 innings. That's a full season. And he's got basically like a 2.5 ERA against the Cardinals in his career. He's got a 14-4 record. He's a Cy Young candidate when he faces the Cardinals. That's real. Unbelievable. So that's what the Cardinals were dealing with tonight. You knew it would be the case, though. Like, let's not pretend, oh, we're shocked, we're amazed. How could they let him do it? No, you guys know the rules. You know the rules. This is just the way it goes. I was not surprised. It's not like I'm bragging when I say that. It's just you knew what was going to happen. To be able to say with confidence, like I did on the radio this afternoon, that the Cubs have the pitching advantage in Game 1 of this series, and Sonny Gray is on the mound for the Cardinals, who's their best pitcher. And I get it. Some people might say he didn't pitch great tonight. He ran through some traffic, but 7 innings, 3 runs, that's fine. It's not maybe the peak of what he's capable, but he pitched okay. I don't have an issue with Sonny Gray tonight and got up over 100 pitches, more than did his job. I'm all right with that outing. I'm not going to even have much to say about it because there's just no negative to. It's probably like a 3.7 ERA for today. It's not his best. But 7 innings, 3 runs, you're going to win a lot of games that way. But not when you're the Cardinals facing Kyle Hendricks. So it's inexplicable, but it's a fact of life anymore. So were you surprised by it really, or were you is that just like the meme now that we're going to say we're surprised by it? No, you can be disappointed by it. You could be frustrated by it. You should be. It's ridiculous. It is unfathomable. However, it is also inevitable. So I wasn't surprised, but I said, it's coming, and you can be mad about it because it's crazy. It's crazy that this is still a thing. But something about it, I don't know if it's in their heads. I don't know if it's their over antsy because he's throwing 88, and so it's like he's below the pitching speed, below the hitting speed, whatever. I don't know the logic behind it. I just know that it's true. And why was it going to be any different today? It wasn't different 3 weeks ago or whatever that was at Wrigley. Why was it going to be different today? Cardinals lose the opener. The good news is that I still think they have the advantage in the series to be able to win the thing because they've got mainstays in their rotation going the next 3 games. And the Cubs, by now, they might have announced their rotation for tomorrow. But we know they're not pitching Steele, and we know they're not pitching Imanaga because those guys pitched within the last 2 days before this one. So the Cardinals should still have the ability to, at a minimum, split this series. But I thought tonight was going to be tough. And I even went back and looked as the game was going along. And I'm not in a position as, reporter. I wouldn't be, betting on this game. But I was curious. I'm like, are the Cardinals probably favored in this game, right? You look at the matchup, Sonny Gray, Kyle Hendricks. Cardinals have the better record this season. Cardinals are probably favored in this game. And they shouldn't be, right? And I looked, and sure enough, they were. And I thought that was nuts. Come on, you know what it's going to be. And maybe that sounds kind of, I'm being kind of blasé about it, but it's just been the way it's always been with Hendricks. And it's like a funny meme, but it's also more than that because there's not really ever an exception to the rule. He just crushes them every time out. So that's what happened tonight. Let me know your comments, your thoughts below in the live chat. You can subscribe. Please do subscribe. There's only 40 of us here sitting here tonight, so I won't bug you about liking the stream. I knew this would be a little more intimate. I'll be curious to see how many people actually even want to listen to this in the morning. Because you think about that Royals series, Cardinals were riding in so hot, right? After the Washington Nationals, they take 3 of 4. They had a great road trip. It's tough to win on the road no matter where you go, but you beat Pittsburgh, you beat the Nats. They played well. They were playing some really good baseball. Even there are frustrating moments, of course, but they bear down and they take, 5 of 7 on the trip. They're playing really well. The Royals thing, they lose a couple of games uncharacteristically. We're so used to watching this bullpen just light it up, and they didn't on Wednesday. And so that's frustrating, but it's like you can understand it. It just feels gross to lose 2 in a row. And they've only done it now 3 times since Mother's Day, but they hadn't lost 3 in a row. And you're going in with Sonny, your ace, on Friday against the Cubs, against a spot starter, effectively. Feel pretty good about that. Well, we all know how it went. So that's where I think right now Cardinals fans are like, I'm gonna have a drink and go to bed. Like I think a lot of people out there. Credit to you guys for tuning in and the comment section still lighting up. So appreciate that. But I think, as a Cardinals fan right now, are you kind of just like over it? And tomorrow's, they play 2 games tomorrow. All right, let's play 2. It could be a completely different story 24 hours from now. Keep that in mind. It changes quickly. But it kind of feels like right now Cardinals fans are like, you got to be kidding me. And even if it was a self-fulfilling prophecy and you saw Hendricks on the bump and you knew it was coming, it still is annoying to see that if you're a Cardinals fan, I'm sure. So let me know how you guys are feeling out there. I imagine, though, people are just a little bit over it right now. And maybe they'll feel completely differently tomorrow, and maybe Sunday's podcast is just a banger. But this one feels like a little bit, it's like you can't freak out about it, but there's got to be a lot of frustration. To lose 3 in a row the way they did, where it doesn't really feel like they're playing badly before tonight, but the bullpen just slips up a little bit. You got to start Graceffo. It's going to be the way that it is. But now you've lost 3 in a row, and it's like quickly this thing could start to spiral on you, and that's where it could get a little bit dangerous. I mean, if the Cubs were to sweep this series, they're going into the break at 500, and so are the Cardinals. They'd be tied. So there's got to be some urgency, but at the same time, it doesn't feel yet like it's slipping away. And I don't think it is. I think the Cardinals are going to be okay. But this offense, man, something's got to give. Some of the ABs from guys like Goldie and Gorman, that's what's holding them back as a team. And I get it that they're still above 500. They're still technically in a playoff spot, but you don't feel great about their standing right now. Tonight, you had Newt Barr play a pretty good game, go 2 for 4. Nobody else had multi-hits. You had a couple of guys get on base twice. Contreras had a hit and a walk. Donnie had a hit and a walk. Goldie was 1 for 4. Did have the RBI hit, but had a strikeout, had, fly out. There's just not a lot of traction for this team. Arenado over, had a walk, back below 700 for the OPS. Goldie's at 665. Gorman looked rough, man. He was 0 for 3, had two strikeouts, and did not look comfortable. Newt Barr, I mentioned he had a good game because he went 2 for 4. You did have a chance, though, there at the end to maybe make something of it, and he needs to. You gotta get the bat off your shoulders in that spot. Kind of a weird location, but that it was a hanging pitch, and it kind of froze him. So it was just very typical for what this game felt like for Newt Barr to kind of end the game there with the bat on his shoulders as the only guy who had multiple hits for the team in the game. You're like, all right. It was just a weird game, but how many games in a row can you say that for and not like take it to heart, Cardinals fans, because they've lost 3 in a row now. This weekend again is going to have a lot of twists and turns to it. There's 3 more games to be played over the next 36 hours, whatever it is. So like you're gonna get a lot of baseball in. Not quite 36 hours, more like 42 hours. Although I guess I should look at the schedule. Day game Sunday, night game Sunday. Sometimes when the Cubs are in town, it is a night game. Yeah, it is a day game. Okay. I was just making sure. So that's all going on. But they're not, it's not like they're dead and out of it. It's just you felt so good about the momentum, and now that's kind of, it's been halted. And it doesn't really feel like it should be the case because they were in these games, not tonight really as it went along, but even toward the end. I mean, Newt Barr's grand slam ties it, so you can't say they weren't in it. But it just felt like a little too late, and not enough punch from this offense. And from some of the guys, they weren't competitive at bats. Non-competitive at bats is what really frustrates you. And Gorman, I saw several of those tonight. And he's so hot cold, man. Like, they need him to be this lineup works best when he is the cleanup batter, but like performing as one. And you can't realistically put him up at the cleanup spot right now. I don't think you can keep Goldschmidt there, but there aren't a ton of options down below that you feel amazing about. For me, it would be either Donovan or Nootbaar, and you just bite the bullet and move them up. They don't feel like cleanup men, but you just, whoever your best players are, the guys that are hitting the best right now, seeing the ball well, you just have to move those guys up and stack them at the top. I would bump Goldie down to, I'd honestly, Arenado looked rough tonight, but Goldie or Arenado 5, the other one 7 is probably what I would do. Gorman stays 8, and then you put, I'm honestly probably Donovan above Nootbaar, but either way, like both are going to get on base. Nootbaar's got better numbers for the season, but not by much. So one of them 4, the other one 6. If you want to go left, right, which some people don't care about that. I know the Cardinals do. They don't want to become overly exposed to certain bullpens to be able to mow down their lefties, because even the lefties they have, they don't hit lefties particularly well, and so as a team, the Cardinals don't hit lefties well. So it would make sense to try to not get overly exposed to that. I mean, you're kind of moving. I'm not going to say rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, because I don't think this team is the Titanic. That would be a very alarmist thing to say. But as far as the lineup goes, it feels like you're just grasping at straws, because there's not a lot clicking consistently on the bottom half right now. He had an 0 day, but reached via walk. He scored the run on the Goldie RBI. Burleson, Contreras, like those are guys that more often than not, they're going to come through. They're swinging the bat well. They're seeing the ball well. So you're okay with that being your top 3. Donovan, I think, generally taking good ABs. Nootbaar has done a nice job. That's kind of got to be your top 5 or 6. And if you want to slide Goldie or Arenado at 5 just to separate some lefties, I'll be okay with that. But otherwise, I think it's just probably time to move some of those guys up. And maybe that's not the end-all, be-all. Like, lineup talk can be a little bit overrated, because at the end of the day, they need more than just 5 guys to hit. Really, they're going to need 1 through 9 or 1 through 8. And you can give a pass to certain guys if they're defense first, like a Ciani. And when Pages, he'll start one of the games tomorrow at catcher, you figure. So, you want to get what you can from him offensively, but you kind of understand. It comes with the territory. So those are kind of some of my just opening thoughts. I'll get into the Herrera stuff. Let me know, though, Cardinals fans, with the Herrera move, option to AAA Memphis, activated from the IL, but they're not bringing him up. They're going to retain Pages for now as the backup. What did you think of that move, and did it surprise you? Because for me, I don't mind the move, and I'll explain why as we go. And it also didn't surprise me, but I may not be the consensus on that. A lot of people on Twitter, social media were saying, I just don't see how you can take the right-handed bat of Herrera and not have it here with the way this offense is performing. And I told people, look, I disagree with you, but I also understand it. I think that there could be 2 sides to this coin, and you can make a case for either direction. I kind of tend to understand where the Cardinals are coming from with the direction they chose, but let me know how you're feeling out there, and I'll be curious to see the comments on that. All right, I'm going to dive into the comments, though, and I'll get through them, and we'll just kind of roll along as we go. Curtis says, I hate getting Hendricks. Yeah, they got Hendricks tonight. Hendricks, I think that's how you'd say that. Rough stuff, says Drew. You hate? Yeah, they got him. Dylan was wanting to know if just holding up a little foam finger would count as like in the stream. I don't think it does, but we got 15 likes. Maybe we get to 20. You never know. Gray lost his last 3 starts, says Justin. I don't care about pitcher wins or losses. I know it matters because the team's got to win or lose the game, and that's really the bottom line. But if you go 7-3, I think you pitch well enough to win. I'm not really worried that he got the L on a day where the Cardinals couldn't hit. I just don't really think I put that on him. 9 hits allowed. He scattered some hits. To me, not the end of the world to have an outing like that for Sonny. But, yeah, I mean, you'd probably like to see him lock it in with some more elite stuff in the second half like he did in April and early May. But, it's just one of those things that I'm not going to get too worked up about, because I thought he pitched pretty well. Salvador, what's going on? He joins the B-Shape Daily Gang. By the way, if you sign up for the membership, and this can be true if you're already in the gang, if you want to join the B-Shape Daily Lounge in our new Discord, you get access to a private group chat. All the channels are available to everybody, but there is a private lounge, as we call it, that we kind of shoot the breeze in, and that's just a little extra bonus if you are at the second tier of the membership here on YouTube, which Salvador signs up for the gang, perfectly fine. If you just want to have the YouTube benefits, the Discord benefits come in with the next tier, and that is something that more than a handful of people have already done, and that really helps me out as I'm building this channel. So, Salvador, appreciate you, man, and appreciate all the members here. I'll make sure to get to y'all's comments as well. Like Brett and Allison are part of that channel membership. Appreciate those guys. Mr. Intensity says Hendricks can't score. Well, I'm not going to say that. We're not going to get into that comment, but if y'all saw it come through on the live chat, you know what he said. The Cardinals are the perpetual slump buster is the point, and that is family-friendly enough for me to say, so I will. Brett says Kyle Hendricks had a 2.62 ERA, 13-4 before tonight against the Cardinals. Yep, 14-4, sub 2.5, or right around 2.5. He's thrown so many innings, he probably isn't quite sub 2.5, but he might be. How can one guy be so dominant against one team? I do not know. And it spans like a decade at this point, right? It's not like it's the same players every time. Just very strange. Allison, appreciative of the late night stream. Yeah, I'm glad you guys are here, and it'll go past midnight, and that'll be fine. But I wasn't sure how many people were going to be into it on a Friday night, but here we are. Daniel says, happy Friday, everyone. Look at that. That's bright and cheery on a night that it didn't go very well for the Cardinals. Billy Baseball says, bummer game, but no matter what happens in this series, being at least 500 at the deadline is fine. Yeah, if they get swept, the Cubs are tied with you. You're probably not quite in a wild card spot anymore if you lose the next three. If you are, you're tied with the Cubs. That's the best case scenario for the third spot. You know, I don't know what that would mean for the Cardinals at the deadline. Like, how does John Mozeliak, does he say, well, we lost 6 in a row, or what would it be, 5 in a row? Well, yeah, 6, because they lost 2 on Wednesday, and then it would be 4 against the Cubs. And I'm not projecting that. In fact, I think they're more likely to go 3 of 4 in this series than they are to get swept. Likeliest outcome to me is a split, because I think the Cardinals will win 2 of the next 3. I think they have the pitching advantage. Tonight they didn't. There's no shame in that. And it's not a knock on Sonny Gray. That's not me going, Sonny's no ace. That's not what I'm saying. They just can't hit Kyle Hendricks, and it's a fact of life. So it's not really even about Sonny Gray. Honestly, I know that it was his turn and he was overdue because he would have been able to pitch on Wednesday, right? But they gave him the extra day, which meant another extra day because they were off on Thursday. I'd have given him one more day because it would have been an advantage against whoever you went tomorrow. I know that's ridiculous and silly, but it's like you wasted Sonny in the Kyle Hendricks game. That's kind of how it feels. Which is preposterous, but again, I'm a little bit, I'm kind of being sardonic about it tonight, but it's just because, like, what can you do at this point other than just make jokes about it? There's nothing else to say. Hunter, one of my channel members, so he helps me out. He's given me some Discord tips, which I appreciate. Why do you think the Cardinals refuse to give Burley a shot in the 4-hole? Goalie has been atrocious with RISP. He sure has. Only Orlando Arcia has been worse in Major League Baseball with RISP than Paul Goldschmidt. But that was as of a couple of days ago, and Goldie did have an RBI hit tonight, so maybe that changed. I guess I should look that stat up and see if Goldie passed anybody. But it is a fair point. However, I think the 2-hole is actually more valuable than cleanup in modern baseball. So I'd rather have my best hitters batting second than fourth. So I don't have an issue with it not being Burleson because he gets to bat more often than the person who bats cleanup, and he's performing. So I want to keep that as he's like a table setter who can also hit dingers. It's a nice spot for him. Excuse me. And they got to get Mason going a little bit more. He's been okay, but not quite where he had been. I'm still cool with him batting leadoff, though. But unless it's a lefty going up to the top, like Newt Bar Donovan, if they want to switch the leadoff man, then you're probably going to have a lefty Burleson continue to bat second. They could go Newt Bar 2, Burley 4, because Newt Bar profiles a little bit more as a table setter than he does as an RBI guy, in my opinion, because he takes walks so well. And Burleson will hit more home runs throughout a given season, I think, than Newt Bar will. So I could see that, Hunter. However, I just think I would still take Burley batting more often than Newt at this point. Newt's looking okay. He's doing all right. But I think Burley is still my preferred option for number 2. But I guess if you're talking more prototypical roles, you think about a slugger, bat, and cleanup. Burley's a good option for that. But Burley, man, he gets bat to ball. He's not going to strike out that often. He gives you a shot every single time. That's a good thing to have in the cleanup spot, but it's also good to have in the 2-hole. They just don't have enough Newt Bars and Burleys right now on this team. And Goldie and Arenado were supposed to be that and then some. And they have just not been up to par. This season will go down. If it goes down, it's going to go down because of, and I hate to pin it on just a few people because it's a 26-man roster and a team sport, but you can't tell me the Cardinals are going to have success if Goldschmidt, Arenado, and Gorman are all going to be sub 700 OPS. It's just not going to work. And that's where they are right now. Damian says, get ready for a B session. Yeah, get your B in done in the comments. I try not to curse, even if it's like something mild like that. Sometimes I will, but it's one of those where I'm like, I don't want YouTube to get mad, you know? Dylan says, Goldie has to go to the bench. There's zero reason to be talking about other trades for upgrades when that free upgrade is staring us in the face. I would not bench him. He has to be dropped to 7 or below in the order, in my opinion. Like I said a minute ago, I would put Nootbaar number 4 or Donnie. The other one 6, Arenado 5, Goldie 7. That's got to happen before you're going to talk about benching him. If it gets to be a point where, like past trade deadline, you can't even make a move, there's nothing to do, and if Luke and Baker is still hitting nukes down there, I would then hear the argument of Goldie being more of a part-time player and playing matchups and letting Luke and Baker have a chance. You probably still, I don't know about DH versus playing first, because Burley could slide to first base. Maybe that's a way to get Jordan Walker back if he shows the acumen to be needed back up here at some point. And again, maybe you just bring up Walker at some point just to shake the tree loose of, try to have some fruit fall out into the basket for this offense and for Jordan Walker, because I don't know that the Memphis numbers matter that much. It's going to be a mindset thing for Walker, in my thought. So he's another guy that you could find a way to get back here, but it's crowded right now. They're going to have to consolidate that bench, and that's a tough conversation to figure out how they're going to do that. But we'll see. The deadline could inform that a little bit. But Dylan, I hear you, man. A lot of people want Goldie benched. I don't think that's necessarily where I would start. I would start by moving him down, though. There's no shame in that. And of all the guys that wouldn't care at all on this team to be moved down, Goldie is not an ego guy. It would not bother him. He says it wouldn't bother him, and I happen to believe him. He is a straight shooter. He doesn't care where he bats in the order. So it is a little strange to me that Ollie has been resistant to bumping Goldie down when you can isolate. I mean, he's had a bad year overall. He's got a 665 OPS. But in particular, you can isolate his struggles in a major way with RISP. He has been far worse with runners in scoring position than he's been just in general. He's got, a 230 average, but with RISP, it was down. I mean, it was 159. I'm going to take a look at it now and see if I can find the updated number. It's 167, though, which is still second worst in baseball of qualifying players. And he's had 84 at-bats with RISP this season. That's not the most in the league, but it's top 30 or so, I would reckon. It's tied for 36th. So you figure an MLB team, there's 30 of them. If you've got a guy in the top 30, that's about average. He's on the higher side of having these opportunities, right? Being 36th in the league with that many at-bats. Now, maybe he's had some walks, so even more plate appearances. He has had 11 walks with RISP, so add that to it. He's probably close to pushing top 25 in the league in RISP opportunities this year, and he's hitting 167. And that's the problem, right? If he's a 230 hitter, but is that far below with RISP, that doesn't profile as a guy that you want to be your cleanup man. By definition, the cleanup man's got to be cleaning up the guys on the bases, and Goldie has decidedly not been doing that. Now, again, he had an RBI tonight, and he's the only guy that did, but it's something that's prolonged over game after game. And I don't feel like I don't ever try to unfairly target a player or say something about a guy when I just think it's just for the sake of shock value. That's not really what I go for. I hope that people understand that when they watch my channel and listen to my stuff. But if I can look at Goldie's numbers and say, all right, I mean, he's a numbers guy. He's the guy that said last year that at the end of the season, the Cardinals were struggling, and he said at the end of the season, after you play 162, the numbers are going to be the numbers. The record's going to be the records, and baseball is a fair game. It's fair. There's nothing unfair about it because 6 months you'll either be a good team or you'll be a bad team, and that will be reflected in your record. That was Paul Goldschmidt that basically laid that out about last year's team. He said, hey, we think we have what it takes to come back and be a good team this year. They didn't. But at the time, he said, we think we do. But if we don't, that's going to be shown. Like, there's no hiding from that. Baseball is a fair game. You might get a bad bounce here and there, but over 6 months, it's a fair game. And last year, they weren't a good team. But that was Goldie's words that echoed in my mind throughout the season of, hey, look, there's not going to be an excuse at the end of 23 if this goes poorly. Paul Goldschmidt basically said, we're going to be responsible for whatever this record ends up being, And last year's team had to wear that. Now, in that same vein, I'm looking at Goldie's numbers with RISP, and you're talking about more than halfway through the year, he's the second worst producer with RISP in the major leagues. I mean, that's not your cleanup hitter right now. There's no spite in that. That's a numbers-based conversation. And I get that there might be a reason to defy the numbers for a little while if you're Ollie Marmol because you're trying to instill something in a guy. But I think Paul Goldschmidt can handle it, and I think it's better for the team not to have him taking these ABs. And as much as he's a baseball playing robot who I don't think a lot of outside noise bothers Paul Goldschmidt, I also think, sometimes we see a guy drop down in the lineup and their demeanor can change because there is suddenly just inherently less of a pressure factor. And I think that could play out for Goldie as well. I'm not saying it's going to. I don't know. But I think at this point it's going on long enough that it's fair to try. It's fair to have a willingness to try that. And maybe a doubleheader tomorrow is a spot where they could see fit to do that. But I don't want to overly pick on Goldie either because you can look up and down this lineup today and nobody was hitting Kyle Hendricks, right? So it's not just Paul Goldschmidt, and he only struck out once. Gorman, I think if anybody, had probably the roughest day at the plate. Wasn't strong for Arenado either, though he did get a walk. Some of Gorman's ABs were really tough. Swinging on top of breaking balls that just pretty average breaking balls that are like landing in the strike zone, but he's just out in front on them. It wasn't just Goldie tonight, and it hasn't just been Goldie all year. But if you're talking about Goldie, Arenado, Gorman, and you're looking at those guys to be 800-plus OPS or even MVP candidates in some cases, and none of them have materialized, that's the way this team ends up winning 82 games and missing the playoffs instead of winning 89, 90. I mean, if those guys are all 0 wins above replacement instead of 3-4 wins above replacement, I mean, that's a big difference. That's the heart of your offense that has just underperformed collectively. It's been nice to get guys like Contreras, I think, overperforming. You knew he'd be good, but he's been great. It's been nice to see Mason Wynn produce the way he has. They trust him to be leadoff. Burleson has emerged. I mean, that's been a really quality thing to happen this year. But the big three of Goldie, Arenado, Gorman, and then I would even add Jordan Walker to that because he was untenable in the lineup, so they had to send him down. And I didn't think he needed to quite be on that level, but he had a 787 OPS last year. And he's a non-factor right now playing in the minors. So, I mean, that combination is really how the Cardinals have gotten to a spot where we don't really know what to make of them this year. Sorry. I had to take a sip of water there. Allison said, after the Royals game and tonight, what's your ultimate batting lineup? Yeah, I think it's what I mentioned a little bit ago. If I'm going to keep Wynn at the top, which I'm fine to do, it's Wynn, Burleson, Contreras. I'm okay with it being Donovan right now. I could see the argument for Newt second and then Burley fourth. But what I say, Wynn, Burley, Contreras, and then take your pick between Nootbaar and Donnie. And I'm thinking Nootbaar's actually probably more viable because then when I split up Gorman and Arenado, or pardon me, Goldie and Arenado, I'll go Arenado 5, Donnie 6, Arenado 7. And that almost decreases some of the pressure because Donnie's going to take good ABs. He's not really going to get beat in the way that sometimes we're seeing Goldie and Arenado get beat. So having a guy, and it's not that Nootbaar won't take good ABs, but maybe there's something to going back-to-back with Arenado Nootbaar. Well, either way, you're doing that if Nootbaar's 4. So, yeah, Nootbaar 4, Arenado 5, Donovan 6, Goldie 7, and then Gorman 8, Ciani 9. And when Pages is in there, it obviously changes a little bit, but not terribly so. And I think that would be my lineup right now. In the positions they work out to where you can figure out where everybody goes. Brett says losing the last 3 games all at home really hurts. Seems to be a trend. Cardinals are worse offensively when at home, but maybe that's just me. But at least kept the no shutout streak alive. Yeah, I guess I didn't realize the Cardinals had one of those going without being shut out. But they are probably worse at home because it's a pitcher's park. That's one of the reasons. But and I'd have to look up the numbers. I don't know if I'll be able to grab it on the fly as far as runs scored at home versus on the road. But yeah, if that's the case, it's not surprising to me. Somebody can look that up. I'm already kind of behind on the comments, but I hear you. Another huge game from Bedell tonight, 7 scoreless. Well, there's your down on the farm. I don't know if I can play the audio drop while on here. But if maybe I could find it. No, because I'm actively recording on Spotify, or on Audacity, so it won't let me. But yeah, Ian Bedell, he's interesting, man. Like, it's another one of those guys that, and I said this before, if the Cardinals were out of it at the deadline, which they're not going to be, and they shouldn't sell, there's nobody I'm selling. But if they were, Bedell is a guy that you might want to see get some big league starts before the end of the year, just to kind of see what that looks like. You got to remember, like, this guy was pretty good pitcher, pretty good arm at Mizzou, was drafted in that 2020 draft, which is saying something. That was the year that you only had 5 rounds. So that does mean something. He's got some pedigree. And then he had injury, right? He missed basically 2 full years, and now we're finally seeing, like, the first full ramp-up season of him, and he looks pretty good. Excuse me. So, yeah, that's pretty good. I had not seen that yet. I had not checked. I usually do my down on the farm kind of checkup before starting the pod, but I was like, well, I'm not going to be able to play the drop tonight anyway, so I didn't look. But that's pretty good, if that's the truth. I'm looking at, all right, am I seeing this right? Because I just pulled up the Memphis scoreboard, and I was like, okay, Hunter said 7 innings, shutout, or one run, shutout for Ian Bedell. And then I looked at it, and I'm like, well, they lost 11-1. Are you sure he pitched well? Because I've been sitting here talking for 2 minutes about how he pitched well, because you told me he did. And the bullpen just got beat up really bad in the 8th and 9th, which stinks, because Granillo had an unbelievable ERA, 0.6, and now it's 2.4, because he gave up 3 runs because he walked 4 guys, didn't give up a hit. That sucks. I was liking to see Granillo's ERA, how low it could get. That kind of feels fake. How did he walk 4 guys in a row? He had 1 K and 4 walks, and 3 of those guys came around to score. Nick Robertson got shelled a bit, 5 runs, 1 inning, and Boziokovic got allowed a couple of runs too. So you lose 11-1. Bedell didn't have a scoreless, but it was an unearned run that scored against him in the first inning. But yeah, he's down to a 2.78 ERA in AAA. I mean, that's pretty good. I think I actually tried to add him in a fantasy league the other day, just trying to anticipate that he might be a guy. And ESPN doesn't even have him in their player pool, which is, come on, ESPN, what are we doing? What are we doing here? So anyway, that's cool, though, that Bedell is doing that. I mean, I don't know what his future is going to hold. I could see him being a guy the Cardinals float in a trade if they don't think necessarily a lot of him. Just as I say that, I should have even brought it up. Just as I say that, I guess he has been since added into ESPN. If you're in a fantasy league with me, don't pay attention to what I'm about to do. But I got to do something real quick in a couple of leagues. Because once I say it on a stream, I know some of the people that I'm in leagues with are probably watching. And they're like, oh, Ian Bedell? Yeah, maybe I'll check on him. Do I have time to beat? If Travis is watching, he's going to beat me to it. If he wants him. I don't even know that he wants him. But otherwise, why is Ryan Weathers on the 60-day? Is he coming back soon? I know this is like the lamest podcast thing. I can drop Bryce Wilson and figure out the rest later. I just wanted to get Ian Bedell on a couple fantasy teams. Get a Mizzou guy. I got to do that. Okay. Sorry about that, everybody. Thank you, Hunter, for the tip, because I literally did. I looked last time he pitched. I'm like, where is he? He's not on ESPN. He's in AAA. That's weird. They added him like within the last week, I think. Okay, Scott says, crappy night to be a Cardinals fan. At least we have your awesome show to cheer us up. Well, thank you, Scott. My gosh. It's a nice thing to say. Allison, nice thing to agree with. Billy says, I unironically think the Cardinals would be a dangerous playoff team if they survive the wild card round. I believe in the ability of this team to find wins across the best of 5s and 7s. Yeah, I honestly don't disagree with that either. What would have to happen is just that rotation would have to be on a good spell, where like Gibby gives you, think about the best you've seen from Gibby this year, the best you've seen from Lance Lynn, the best you've seen from Michaelis, obviously the best you've seen from Gray. If you're rolling that foursome, Cardinals are going to be able to contend. If you get, like, what would I change about the lineup if I just had like a fairy magical wand and could say, bippity boppity boo? I would be like, well, I would not ask for much. I would just say Goldie, Arenado, Gorman have to OPS 810 to 820. And then suddenly, if that's the case, I mean, this lineup is completely different. It's dangerous. There aren't holes in it. You're looking at Ciani as maybe a hole, but there's a reason he's in there. And then, when Pages is in there, again, there'd be a reason he's in there. So I agree with you, Billy. I think it's possible, but that's also probably the sunshine pumping that happens after a 3-game losing skid. But I'm answering honestly. I'm not going to be a prisoner of the moment to this last couple of games. I do think there are qualities of this team that could portend success in a longer series. But we'll see if they get that far. The positive note, Cardinals pitchers didn't walk anyone. There you go. Justin's looking for the bright side. Well done. Space Magic Storm said had PTSD from Kyle Hendricks. Need to trade for him and send him to single A. Yeah, I was thinking about, like the companies that, and like it's kind of an annoying and a bad thing that happens in media, especially today. But there'll be companies, venture capital. They'll buy the media corporation or the newspaper and they'll gut it. They'll be shameless about it. And it's pathetic that this happens. This is kind of like an offshoot conversation. But I thought that's so sad when that happens. They let these people go. People are laid off. They lose their jobs. They do good work at those places. And these people that just don't really care about them come in and buy them. And that's just a shame when that happens. The Cardinals should do that to Kyle Hendricks was my point. They should give him a contract and just pay him not to play. Like, dude, you can do whatever you want. Given like the Bobby Bonilla deal, the Mets are paying him $1 million on my birthday, July 1st, every year until like 2035 or whatever it is. Just pay him like $1 million a year until he's reasonably too old to be able to pitch, and then but you just pay him to not play. You know what I mean? $1 million. He's probably making a little more than $1 million this year, but it's not a bad idea. Mo, I mean, I think you got to think about it at least, because it's happened twice this year that he's come back to bite him. How many more times is it going to take? Tonight, Mo is making a Godfather offer for Kyle Hendricks in trade. He's like, "Do you want Mason Wynn? Because I don't ever want to have this happen again." No, that would be ridiculous, obviously. But it's like I said, the only way you can get through something like this, guys, I recommend you all joke about it, because it is kind of funny if you think about it. Damien, why in the heck does Ollie still hit the horrible batter with RISP in the 4 spot? Well, I did talk about it a little bit, Damien, and I understand your frustration. But, like, you're also frustrated with Gorman, rightfully so. There's been frustration with Arenado, rightfully so. Part of it is, who do you put up in that spot? But like I just detailed a little bit ago, for me it would be one of the lefties. And are those guys prototype cleanup men? No, but who cares anymore? It's not really about, does your lineup feel good? Does it feel like you've got a big bopper batting fourth? Who cares? Do you have a guy that's going to take tough ABs and turn, reverse the curse right now on RISP? Now, it's, again, Goldie did have the only RISP hit today, or I guess the only run-scoring hit today for the Cardinals. I guess it could have been the only RISP hit because they didn't have anybody in RISP before that. Did the Cardinals bat 1,000 with RISP? I guess not, because eventually Nootbaar had the out, so that had to end the game somewhere. But, yeah, I mean, I would move him down. I already said I'd move him down. I think people understand where I'm coming from there. 1 for 3 with RISP today. It did seem like for the early innings, though, they'd get somebody on first, and they'd pop out, they'd strike out. There was no motion to this offense to move the runners over and to try and manufacture anything, which is rather typical for baseball nowadays, but you know what I mean. Sean, one of our wonderful channel members, no matter how bad a season Hendricks has, when he pitches against the Cardinals, he kills them. Yeah, he does. 2.6 ERA before today, probably down to 2.5. Tyler says first timer on the Score app. He is listed as injured. Who's injured? Bedell? I don't know who that was regarding. I hope not. But Tyler, if you're a first timer here, welcome. Appreciate you, man. Daddy Padre is also sick of watching Hendricks deal. Yeah, I'm sure. A lot of people are. Bradley says Gray did okay. I agree. Yeah, Gray was okay. We expect so much of him because of how good he was for the month when he started off, and we're like, oh, this is Cy Young. This is unbelievable. He's had some slips, but he pitched fine today. You get through 7 and 3. Gray is not an innings eater historically. Sonny Gray has not been that guy to eat up innings throughout his career. But you look lately, I mean, go back to the last month or so. 7 innings, 7 2/3, 7, and then had a couple of rough ones, 4 1/3 and 5, and then 7 again tonight. He's gone moderately deep and has gotten up to, 100 innings pitched on the season? I mean, he's tracking to get 170, 180, and again, I've said this before on the show. Sonny Gray has not had back-to-back 140 inning seasons in like a decade. And he's coming off one where he threw 184. So for him to be low 3 ERA, giving him 180 innings this year, I know that might not just be what everybody was hoping for from like the way it looked at the beginning. But remember, this guy missed a couple of starts to begin the year and is still tracking to be something that he's not really been typically as an innings eater, again, in consecutive seasons. He did it last year for Minnesota, but then historically, when he follows up a season like that, there are some injuries, there's some concerns. Yeah, he had the hammy, but he's overcome that, and he's been pretty darn solid. He's not going to be great in every game, but nobody is, right? Paul Skeens will, but he's got something in his blood that makes him amazing. I don't know what it is, but he's the best pitcher in baseball. So Brett says, the reason the Cardinals lost tonight was the small offensive mistakes, weak production like the strikeout, throwout, or Wilson not making it to second. Yeah, I don't know. Should Wilson have made it? I don't know. Should he have tried to make it? You just got to not make those mistakes is the bottom line, especially with Hendricks on the mound. Like, you get a hit in the first inning against Hendricks, just chill, man. You can't be making mistakes like that. And then the strike him out, throw him out. Burleson wasn't even close. But I think that's something I pin on Goldie. If I had to guess, that's probably a hit and run. Just trying to spark something with 2 strikes, put the ball in play, make a little magic, get the fielder scrambling. He couldn't put the ball in play. And it was middle slider. You have to hit it. Goldie can't bat cleanup right now for this Cardinals team. I think it's time. I think it's time to move him down. And I'm not saying like bury him. I'm saying put him at 7. I think it's just a small change that they really do need to make. Seth wants to know my prediction for who the Cardinals are going to draft in the first round. They got the 7th pick on Sunday night. If Burns is there or Hagen Smith is there, I think they're going to take one of them. And I think they'll probably pick Hagen Smith over Burns, but I don't know. I have no reason to believe that. I've just seen more people mock Hagen Smith to the Cardinals. He's Arkansas, so that's my only concern. Not that he's going to be bad. I think he's a stud. I just will have to hear it from Arkansas fans. I'm a Mizzou guy, so that's all. I got my Mizzou hat behind me. And that's from University Traditions. And those guys made a new Mizzou hat that is sick. I got to see if I can get me one of those from them. But yeah, the hat behind me on the bed came from them. I also have the... you can see it probably back there. I moved my head out of the way. That mint green Sonny Gray hat that he wore one time. I did buy one of those, and they sold out in like hours. I don't wear it. Like I tell people, I don't wear Cardinals gear. I'm a reporter, writer, cover the Cardinals. But I was like, that's just a cool hat. I just want to have that in my collection. So I had to buy it. And it sold out like the next morning. They were all sold out. So probably a pretty good business decision, if I do say so myself. BC says, go Dodgers, 1 against Scooble. All right, Dodgers fan in the house. What's up, BC? Cal says, Cal, Sonny Gray did good enough for the Cardinals to win, but you got to get hits and runs or you can't win. I agree with that. One of my favorite sayings that I've had over the years, can't win if you don't score. Can't win if you don't score. And that is the fact. Hopefully the Cardinals turn it around soon, said Cal. I got to scroll up. John Owens said, what's up, B-Shafe, and I appreciate that. I got to scroll up. I'm so far behind on these comments. I'm so sorry, guys. Very sorry. Brian says, Brian, welcome to the B-Shafe Daily Gang. All right, Brian, joining the channel membership. And again, the lounge tier, if you want the private chat on Discord, that's the lounge tier. No big deal. But I just love seeing the support on the channel. Is unbelievable. The fact that we're up over 30 channel members now. And it's like $5 for the base membership, 10 for the bigger one that you get for the Discord. And it's like people are spending hard-earned money to support the channel. I don't take that lightly at all. I try to be here every day to put content out, but the fact that people are supporting it and like valuing it to where they're like, you get it for free. Like, let's be honest. But because you identify enough with the community that we're building to say I want to be a member, I'm like, I do not take that lightly at all. So I appreciate you, Brian. Thank you for hopping on, my man. Let's see. Okay, I was reading J. Call's comment. I just got to find it again. Here he goes. Hopefully he said, hopefully we turn this around soon. Don't spiral down. Need to win some games because the wild card spot is going to be close. Yeah, it is. It is. There's no, I don't think anybody's in that mix is given up just yet. Even the teams below 500, which most of them are. I don't think they're mailing it in at this point. It's going to be an interesting deadline because some of these teams to have the gumption to sell, that's going to be a big decision. And don't look now, but here come the D-backs. I mean, the Padres, thank goodness for the Cardinals and other teams, have dropped 5 in a row, but Arizona's now won 3 straight, and they're a game back of the Cardinals. Cardinals and Mets are tied for the second and third wild card right now. Mets have won 4 in a row. So here it is. I mean, Cubs have won 5 straight. All the teams that were kind of down and out are on winning streaks right now. Giants, Reds, Cubs, Pirates all won today. Pirates are 2 games below. Cubs, Reds, 3 games below 500. Same with the Giants. The Nationals, I think I'm ready to count them out, though. They're 6 back, and there's 6 teams back of a wild card spot. But, man, what did I say about a month ago when everybody was like, oh, look, the Cardinals are in it wasn't quite a month ago because that was, well, maybe it was. When they got into a wild card spot, but they were below 500, that was when I was like, yeah, that's not going to last. All these wild card spots are going to be above 500 teams. There's going to be a push. Somebody's making a charge. And that's exactly what's happened. So, you're right, J. Call. They're going to need to win because this isn't going to fall into their lap like a lot of people thought it might. It's not going to take 82 wins. It's going to take 85, 84, 85, maybe more to make the playoffs. Allison said, I thought Sonny did a great job. Yes, ran into trouble, but we didn't give him any support either. Yep, that's the key. Got to score. Can't win if you don't score. Tyler says, do you think the Cards should get another reliever at the deadline? I do. This was something that Josh Jacobs and I talked about on our new podcast, Philosophical Differences, which is on the same YouTube channel. If you subscribe to the channel, you'll be able to find that podcast from a little bit earlier today. And B Shape Daily feed on Spotify. If you have Spotify and you want to help me out, just go follow the podcast and leave a 5-star review on B Shape Daily. It's just like B Shape, like my name is spelled, Daily, because the Spotify follower count has been going up. And it's kind of fun to see. It's not nearly as big as the YouTube following, and that's why I'm like, I want to see that get up a little bit higher. So if you want to go leave a review over there, we've got over 100 reviews left, which is awesome. And I don't know. It probably helps us on like Google listings and stuff if people review on Spotify. Unless you leave a bad review. I guess you could if you don't like the show, but that would kind of suck. Anyway, let's not go down that path. As far as a reliever at the deadline, Tyler, I posed this today. I said, Chicago White Sox, John Brebbia has had I didn't check tonight, but had 9 scoreless appearances in a row. He's got the ERA down to 4.5. It was in the 6s. So he's lighting it up. Brebbia looks like like he used to look with the Cardinals. Tommy Pham. I know people feel the way they feel about Tommy Pham. He's polarizing. Cardinals need guys that can hit lefties. Tommy Pham has a 690 OPS in the season, but it's 788 against lefties. And he can play a little bit of center field if he had to. I feel like Tommy Pham, Brebbia would be 2 solid guys to add. They don't move the needle a ton. But remember the Colby Rasmus trade in 11. Did any of those guys that the Cardinals picked up on paper move the needle? Edwin Jackson, Mark Zipchinski, Corey Patterson, etc. Not really. They were all just kind of journeymen. But it worked. I think there's a case to be made. I'm not saying I do it necessarily, but I think I probably would have to consider something of the ilk. Dylan Carlson, and then and I was just thinking like a minor league pitcher who's maybe not a top prospect, but then I talked to some people. It's like, you know what? Zach Thompson. What about Zach Thompson? Is he coming back? Where is his standing right now in the org? I'm not sure myself. But I think he's a big league arm. So does it almost do him a favor to send him somewhere where no pressure to win right away? They can throw him in the rotation and see what happens. And same thing for Dylan. Throw him into the outfield every day and see what happens. Those 2 guys for Brebbia Pham, I think would be fascinating as just a way to kind of clear some clutter a little bit. Because Zach Thompson, as much as I am hopeful, he's a former first rounder, I'm hopeful that he can figure it out. I really like Zach. Maybe a chance somewhere else is where it needs to be because right now there have been opportunities this year to go to different guys for starts. And they started with Zach Thompson, and they sent him down eventually, and we haven't seen him since. He could go in the White Sox rotation today, probably. Or at least after the deadline if they trade Fetty and Garrett Crochet, right? So I'm kind of wondering about something like that. But my point is, Tyler, a Brebbia type I think could really help. One more reliable 7th, 8th inning right-hander I think could really help. And maybe it doesn't cost you a ton because he's got a little contract, and I think it's a short-term contract, but he's getting some money. So the Cardinals say, we'll pay it. It's fine. So maybe you're able to do something like that. I do think they need another reliever. It's got to be a needle mover, though. And Brebbia, I think, would fit within that because of how well he's been pitching lately. Brett says, let the sub-200 hitters do most of the damage tonight. And that also didn't help. Yeah, I can hear you on that one, Brett. I just can't get over it's a Hendricks game, so that's really my main focus from the way this one went for the Cardinals. It's like offense needs to do more, but it's Hendricks, so they weren't going to. Didn't seem to have much fire or intensity. Sorry, that's what Bradley had to say, and I agree with him. I didn't see that intensity tonight from the Cardinals. I was only watching on TV at home. I'll be there tomorrow morning to cover the first game of the doubleheader, but I kind of sense that too from afar. J. Call says, I like Gorman, and he hits it hard, but he drives me crazy when he swings at multiple pitches out of the zone, gets out. Yeah, the discipline has taken a step back for Gorman, in my opinion. Allison was not surprised with the Herrera decision. Enjoy watching Pages play. Do you think they will consider Herrera as part of a trade? Yes, I think that they'd be willing to move him if they could get fair value, their interpretation of what's fair value for him. I think he would be somebody that they would look to move. Maybe not look to move. That might not be the right way to say it, but just I'm going to reposition my chair here. I think they would look to, if they're trying to get something done and somebody's interested in him, I could see them being amenable to it because I think Pages is really good defensively, and that's what that they have valued and prioritized that as the backup catcher role for a long, long time. Like when Yachty was here, that was always the priority. It's like, Yachty's out of the lineup for a day. The guy that comes in, if he's not Yachty at the plate, okay. But he's got to be, and he's not going to be Yachty behind the plate, but he's got to be able to handle things. And I think that's Pages. Herrera has done a nice job improving behind the plate. I think he's a good catcher defensively. But the run game thing, people talk about it like, oh, okay, so he allows a few base runners, whatever. It's more than that. 3 for 44 is glaring. It's untenable. You can't have a guy back there that does that because people are going to realize it, and it's going to be open season. Every time you give up a walk or a single, it's a double. That's not tenable. So when you have an option as capable as Pages, I think it makes sense to right now send Herrera down to work on it. Not to, like, banish him forever, but just to work on it. Like, play every day. I hope that Memphis plays him almost daily as much as a catcher's going to catch. And have that be a priority to work on the arm down there and improve it. And once you do that, I think he's a very complete player that should have a lot of value to another team or to this one. So, yeah, that's why I wasn't surprised by the decision. I think there's a very targeted thing that he has to work on right now, and it's going to be easier to work on that, not when big league games are won or lost on guys taking the extra base. His bat plays, and I get that you'd want that bat off the bench. To me, the only way you could have kept him here is if you also kept Pages, though. And at that point, Herrera's just kind of a DH, which maybe is fine. That's how bad the Cardinals are against left-handed pitching, and he can hit lefties. So I understand the impetus behind that, but I also think for the long-term benefit of him and the Cardinals, I think you kind of need him to go down there and play and try to hope that guys are stealing on him every single time they get on first because he needs to work on it. He needs those reps. And you can't really simulate the reps either. And guys tend to run freely in the minors too to kind of rack up stats. So I think he will get better, but he needs a chance to do it. Slightly above 500 is just how good they are. Need to have some players start performing or make some trades to make a serious playoff run. Yeah, I mean, I think they need both of those things, J. Call, and I think they'll try to make trades. We'll see if they make any. Whether or not some of these key players perform better is the question of the year. We just got to wait and see whether it happens. Hunter said, frustrating until you look at the big picture, realize they were dead in the water on Mother's Day until they weren't. Yeah, I mean, Mother's Day was right around when I was like, if they lose another game in this series, I don't know if they're going to start firing people on Monday. Like, it was that bad. So it's not there anymore, which is nice, but yeah. Tyler asking, what about Contreras? What about him? I mean, he played tonight too. I don't know. What do you want to know? He was 1 for 3 with a walk. Like, he was fine. Reached base twice. I said him and Donovan did. So, yeah, I talked about him. If Gorman wasn't left-handed, he'd be in Memphis. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. He could be in Memphis anyway. And for me, every time he's come up here, has not played well, has not hit well. So if he was like knocking on the door for playing time, I think they might have done the Memphis thing with Gorman by now. But since the 1,000 OPS for Fermin in AAA has not translated, it's been easier to keep Gorman around. But like if Jordan Walker was killing it in AAA, Gorman might be sent down because you could then move Donovan to second and Nootbaar to left and still. But I mean, they're begging for people to come up and take these spots, and guys aren't really doing it. Herrera could work better as a DH with Contreras, but Paja's defense is better. Yes, but the problem is, like, Contreras is not going to play catcher 7 days a week. He's not even going to play it 5 days a week. It's going to be like 4 days for Wilson, 3 for the backup, typically. And with Pajas being maybe better defensively than Wilson, which is not saying Wilson's bad, Pajas is just that good, it might be sometimes the other way. Wilson DH is 3.5 to 4 times, and Pajas might catch on those days. So you could DH Herrera, you could, but what happens on the days that Wilson's not catching? I guess you'd need Pajas here still to catch, unless you were just going to roll the dice with Herrera again. And think back to the games that Herrera was catching for that stretch. There was some rough moments there, and I just don't think it was a tenable situation, which is why they made the move. Allison welcoming Salvador to the party, which I appreciate. Yeah, welcome to the Be Safe Daily Gang, Salvador. Appreciate you. Ralph says, as long as Goldie is hitting fourth, Cardinals deserve to continue to struggle offensively. Well, maybe they could hit him fourth, but he could play well. But, yeah, it hasn't happened lately, and that's why I would make the move. I'd move him down. Micah said he was at Busch tonight, and it felt like Wrigley. Yeah, I saw the W flags were flying. The Cubs fans brought their flags. Vibes in the stadium have been bad these past couple of days among fans. I could see that for sure. It'll be interesting to see tomorrow what it looks like. Ace Rob asked me, sir, as of right now, who is your rookie of the year? And I would actually not be supposed to talk about that if there was a chance I would vote for it, because I had a real vote for it last year, and they don't want us to, like, kind of put out our leans on that kind of stuff if we're going to be actually voting on an award, because for obvious reasons, people bet on that kind of stuff, and you just don't want to get into that. But I voted on it last year, so I'm sure they're not going to have me vote on the same thing again this year. Paul Skeens, though, is kind of obvious, right? He's going to run away with it. He could win Cy Young. I mean, he's starting the All-Star game, and he wasn't even on the roster until May. So it's Paul Skeens. I don't even think it's a question at this point that he's going to win Rookie of the Year if he stays healthy. The problem is the Pirates did not bring him up soon enough to get the draft pick for it. Ain't that some bleep? I mean, they thought they were being careful with him, but then he has an ERA of 0.9 for a month in AAA, and they're like, I guess we do have to bring him up. But by then, they had waited too long to get the draft pick for it if he wins Rookie of the Year. So that kind of stinks. He'll get a full year of service time, though. That's for sure. That you can't play the service game anymore because if a service time game, because if a guy wins Rookie of the Year, he just gets the year. That's how it works now. Yep. K. Nelio says, how much longer can Mo and Gersh continue with Gorman at second? Does he get the remainder of the season? Is he back next year? Average OBP K rate, runners left on. He's been a hole in the lineup, and an 0-2 counts at the plate screams of a passive plate appearances to me. You know, he's leading the team in homers. That's the other thing, and it's not the end-all, be-all. Look, he's got some issues, but that's what you continue to chase and try to find a way to get him more consistent. I think a Memphis stint would be good for him, but I could be an idiot, and maybe all he needs is the All-Star break and comes back and fixes what's going on. I don't know. But you're right. Like, those at-bats have not looked good from him. And J. Call says, biggest thing with Gorman is he's inconsistent, and that's been true. John said, what up, be safe, and so I will say, what up, John. His inconsistency with Gorman kills offensive progression. And he's not the only one, but he is glaring. I agree. And they've done what they can do as far as they've moved him to 8th, and they've not bumped him right back up any day he's good. They're not suddenly like, oh, bump him up. They haven't done that, so that's good. But yeah, as far as getting him going, I just don't know, man. Cardinals have been waiting for it, and I know fans have too. As bad as Goldie is, even if they benched him, who the heck are they going to replace him with? Well, that would be kind of easy. Luke and Baker would be my answer. Or Burleson goes to first, and then you call up Walker. But then, as Hunter mentions, Walker is hitting 206 so far in July. That's why I would just call him up. I'd be like, hey, get out of your own head. Because Jaywalk, he's in his own head down there. He feels like he's toiling a little bit. I would call him up and say, dude, your numbers at Memphis don't matter. Just go hit. I'd call him up just to tell him that. And then maybe send him back down. I don't know. If there was a spot for him, I think they should have him here, but there's not really an obvious spot. If they're not going to do some benching of a guy like Goldie, which I don't think they should, I know that's crazy, send him down in the lineup first. That would be where I would start. Mr. Intensity does mention, though, the last time that Baker was up, all he did, leave him parked on the bench. Yeah, I mean, they didn't think much of Baker. I don't think Ollie thought very much of Baker, to be honest with you. Like, I just don't think he was on their radar. And is that fair or not? Like, I think as an organization, it's a mistake to get into a spot where you're almost like too presumptuous that like, oh yeah, this guy's got good minor league numbers, but we know he's not really a big league hitter. And like, that's kind of a hard, kind of haughty attitude to take when you look at this bench and you look at this lineup and guys are underperforming. It's like, I don't think you can really afford to be dismissive of a guy with great minor league numbers just because you think it won't translate. Maybe it's incumbent upon you as the organization to try and see. Otherwise, it's just playing favorites, and that's not going to get you anywhere long term. I'm not saying that's what they're doing, but I did get a sense that they were very dismissive of Baker last year. And just my opinion, they could challenge me on that, but I just feel like they didn't really, it seemed like anytime he gets brought up, it's like, yeah, okay, Luke and Baker, yeah, the guy that hits some home runs. So yeah, home runs are good. I know it might not be something he could consistently do at the big league level, but think about like Luke and Baker when he had a chance last year in St. Louis. It was a small chance, but it was, played more toward the end of the year because obviously the Cardinals were out of it, and they're like, well, what do we have to lose? And so he got a little bit of run. I'm going to go back now and look up his numbers, and I think the point I'm going to make is going to be valid. He had a 627 OPS, hit 209. It's not good, but it's 30, 40 points lower than Goldie's current OPS. It's higher than Ciani's OPS. It's higher than Pages' OPS. It's higher than Crawford's. Higher than Carpenter's. Well, I don't know about Carpenter. He might have better numbers than that. Let me type it in. Yeah, Carp's hitting 240. I mean, I bet he's above 627 for OPS. 655. So I was wrong about that. But my point is, and Baker's a defensive probably liability because he can only play first, and I don't even know how well he plays it necessarily. But there does come a point where you're like, who cares? We need someone that can hit. And maybe the Cardinals decide to do that at some point. But I think with the way their bench is built, Carp's there, Crawford's there, Carlson's there. It's kind of clogged. And Edman might be coming, maybe. Anybody see what Tommy Edman did tonight? If he played? That's one thing I should probably have looked up. I should probably look that up, but we're already over an hour on this thing, aren't we? I always do this to myself, don't I? Hour 13, so the podcast itself is probably at about the hour 7, hour 8 mark. I got to roll through these comments, and I'm going to do it quickly so we can get out of here and go to bed. But first, I want to see Tommy Edman's stats. He played tonight, 0 for 3, walked. Second game in a row DHing, though. I don't know what's going on there. I guess they're really taking it slow, but he's going to have to play the field. Like, that's kind of a big part of his value in St. Louis, so... But they can take all the time they need. You get 20 days of a rehab, and I am sure they could petition MLB to extend it. I'm sure Edman might be willing to extend it if he had to, just to make sure he's good to go. So that's what's going on. At least he played tonight. That's good news because he had that game a couple days ago where he was scratched. All right, going to try to get through some of these comments now. And if I've read your comment already, I might not double back to some of your other ones because I want to try to get to everybody. MJ50, what does sitting Goldie do for the long run? Hard to see this team going far without him. Yeah, I agree with that. Same with Arenado, and honestly, same with Gorman. If you had Fermin come up or JC come up or whoever it would be, it's like, is that guy going to be a difference maker? He might be an okay player, but Gorman, if he finds it, is a difference maker. And I hate that they're reliant upon a bunch of ifs and buts, but if and but, I mean, that's really what could end up working for them if those guys get hot. You cannot match the upside that Gorman has with anybody down there in AAA, except for maybe Walker, and right now he's not performing either. Bradley said, Goldonado, Gorman, lacking intensity. It's a buzzkill. Love all three of them, but where is the fire? Where's the leadership? I don't know if it's a lack of leadership. It's a lack of production, right? I don't think that, because leadership almost implies like they're doing something wrong as teammates, as players, as men, like leading the team. I don't think there's a problem with leadership, but the performance has stunk, and so that's kind of tricky. It can be hard to parse those two things out. Andrew said, feels like the Goldonado accelerated aging curve and the Gorman Walker misses are going to sink this team for a while. They could if those trends continue, that's for sure. Salvador agrees with my Goldie take. Well, I appreciate that. Allison says, we got to be more productive on offense. Seems like struggling to get runs across the plate. Yeah, that's for sure. They are definitely struggling to get runs across the plate on a night like tonight. It's certainly easy to say. Royals series, like they took some good ABs, had some bad luck, but the bullpen was struggling. But even when they've been a good offensive team, their version of that is like kind of top 12, top 15. It's like top half. They've not really had a prolonged stretch where they've just dominated for like a 2-week period where they just go in fuego. Most teams maybe don't do that, but this team kind of needs to. I think that's what they would need. And it's what they could do if they had the guys that are in the middle, if they had those guys performing better. Brian said, I think this offense has been masked by great pitching. The wins, they've snuck out, but still going to stand on the hill. Offensive approaches need to change. If that's a coaching change, then do it. This team can't find a barrel on the bat. At this point, I'm completely content with trading Goldie, as much as I love him, and put Alec at first and bring up Walker and let him figure it out up here. Yeah, I don't think they'll trade Goldie. I've said that a number of times. It's not like they're buying. I understand your thought of like if you move Goldie out and his 665 OPS, like don't think of it as Goldie. Think of it as his number. If you moved his number out, the 660 OPS, and you brought up somebody that is going to outproduce that, then you feel like that's a net gain. However, like clubhouse leadership, different things that are intangible that people don't see in the box score, I'm not saying that's a great thing to just have be the end-all be-all all the time, but with Paul Goldschmidt, I don't think you're not going to let his Cardinal tenure end that way, where you're buying, but you get rid of him just to like clear the deck. I don't think that's happening. John says, who's going to be the 4-hitter then? Well, I said Nootbaar or Donovan. Yeah, I've gave that lineup a few times. Mason Wynn, Burleson, Contreras, Newt or Donnie. One of them 4, one of them 6. Arenado 5, Goldie 7, Gorman 8. Ciani 9. That's what I would do. And then when Pages plays, you obviously have to sit somebody. And maybe it is Gorman and play Donovan at second. And tomorrow we'll see it because they're not going to have the same lineup for both games. So maybe it's a day off for Goldie. That would be reasonable. Tomorrow, play Burleson at first base for one of the games and see it. Because you don't need Goldie to play both halves of the doubleheader since he just did on Wednesday. Is that reasonable? I could see them doing that tomorrow. We'll see. Either way, though, I'd drop him lower in the order, personally. Neilio said that Wynn needs that all-star break rest. His glove is still elite, but the appearances at the plate have looked a bit tired. Just needs to rest. And yep, he's going to get that rest. I thought he could have been a candidate for all-star, but it'll be good for him. The one guy that you really thought needed rest would have been Hells, and he's going to probably pitch in the game, so it is what it is. Walker still needs time to get it corrected in Memphis. Still doesn't elevate the baseball off the barrel down there, and he has to be able to hit at a good clip to make it back to St. Louis. Yeah, I heard who was it? Mark DeRosa? No, it was Greg Yamsinger, I believe, that was on 101 today, and I saw the clip on Twitter where he said a lot of the analysts, former MLB players over at MLB Network, have been saying they think the Cardinals have ruined Walker. I was going to talk about this, and maybe it's a video for another day, but they're like, just because he's a big, strong dude doesn't mean he has to always lift the ball. It's okay if he's a high average hitter at 22 years old. Let him hit for average. Don't try to change him, and the launch will come. Kind of like a Matt Holliday, who was a line drive hitter not a home run hitter. And I think like that was his point, his premise. But I'm like, I don't even think like Holiday did hit line drives that sometimes turn into homers. Walker wasn't hitting enough line drives in the big leagues. That's why they sent him down. I think that characterization is a little bit unfair. But, of course, it was former players that are now analysts that came up in the 80s, 90s, and they saw the game a different way. Launch angle's more important now, so that's a generational divide that you're dipping into. I can see both sides. I don't think it's fair to say the Cardinals are ruining Walker, but, like, they're not finding ways to get him going yet, and it's partially his responsibility, largely his responsibility, but you'd like to think that the coaching down there could find a way to tap into something that gets him going, you know? As soon as Newpark comes back, immediately 3 straight losses, including 2 in the Lou red jerseys. Yeah, but that's all just random stuff. Newpark's not played poorly. I mean, that's unfair. That's not a good characterization. It's like people in my Discord. Join the Discord, by the way. I don't think I put that in the link to this video, but that sucks because the Discord's fun. We have like 150 people in it now. And everybody's blaming me for the Cardinals losing because of the fact that the Discord started and then they immediately lost 3 games in a row. So that's cool. Dylan says, had to get Newt back in the lineup. We're playing great ball. Why mess with it? That's so, Dylan, come on. You don't mean that. Why are we, you guys are smarter than this. I'm not trying to pick on Dylan, but that's a bad take. That's a bad take if your take is legitimately, oh yeah, just had to get Newt back in there. Why would you mess with it? That's almost as silly as saying, why'd you make a Discord, Brenden? Why'd you do it? The Cardinals were winning, then you had to go and make a Discord. Newt was 2 for 4 tonight. He was 2 for 4 with a home run in Game 2 on Wednesday. What are we doing with that? Come on, that doesn't make any sense. Aaron says, versus the Cardinals this season, 11 1/3 innings pitched scoreless. That's Hendricks. Against everybody else, an 8.08 ERA. That's about right. Yep. Neilio mentions that they need to manufacture runs, and he's right. Andrew says, woke up this morning and saw Cubs money line at plus 165 and hammered it when I saw Hendricks was pitching. I'm glad that somebody out there who was like able to like bet on that game saw what I was thinking and actually acted upon it. Good for you, Andrew, because that just made too much sense. Like, why were the Cubs such a big underdog? Like, that's, if for people who don't know sports betting, like a plus 165, I don't know how often baseball numbers get that high, but for football, like if you're plus 165, you're probably like at least a field goal underdog, I would think. That's normally what I'm looking at. So that's an underdog for sure. And they, okay. I mean, it's just strictly not understanding that this is a superhuman, supernatural thing going on when it comes to Kyle Hendricks and the Cardinals, that whoever out in Vegas was making the line didn't know about it. That's all there is to it. They saw Sonny Gray. They saw a 7 ERA pitcher, and they're like, oh, make the Cardinals big favorites. There you go. Brian said, good bullpen arm, number 2 starter, and a right-handed power bat. If Walker was doing what we expected, he would be that bat. Yeah. That's a good shopping list for the deadline. It is. Gorman looked great during the Nats series. Now he looks like he took 2 steps back. Yeah, I agree. I don't know what happened there and why. But Brian, appreciate you, man, for joining the B-Shape Daily Gang. And Allison, appreciate you for sticking around for the stream as long as you could. Don't get the whole farm system thing, but that's for another time. Yeah, ask me any questions you want, Allison. Send me messages if you need anything you need to know. There are some things that like maybe come obvious to me because I've just been involved in this for so long that some fans are like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And I'll try to explain that. Sometimes I feel like I can simplify things more than I do. But then I always turn around and I'm like, oh, people already probably know this, but maybe people don't, and that's okay. It's okay not to know a thing. And then I would like to be the person that can help you out and help you find out what it's all about. That's all. Damian said, with Lynn pitching tomorrow, what are his start splits being at home versus the road? Thinking if the Cardinals make the playoffs, you pitch them at home and not on the road. Yeah, they're much better. The splits for Lynn are much better at home than they are on the road. I looked it up at one point, and I can grab it for you real quick before we get out of here because I think we're about to wrap things up. I've gotten to most of these questions. Quick sip, and I'll get that Lynn number for you. Okay. Pulling this up on Baseball Reference. At home this year, Lance Lynn, allowing a 627 OPS. On the road, 859 OPS. Home ERA, 3.66. Away ERA, 5.36. 9 games at each, home and away. So that's a 1.7 ERA differential between home and road. Yep, so he's at home tomorrow. That's good news. And again, Pitcher's Park, and he's a guy that historically has given up a few homers, so kind of makes sense that he's been better at Busch. And he's given up more homers on the road, too. This year, 9 homers allowed in 9 games on the road, 4 homers allowed in 9 games at home. It's almost like the Cardinals knew what they were doing, signing him and getting him back to Busch. Getting it back looks pretty tough to do with 60 or so games remaining in the season. After 100 or so games into the year, players are kind of what they are. Maybe something special occurs. I agree. It's hard to just say a switch is going to flip for Gorman or is going to flip for Arenado or for Goldie. I don't know if it is. And their season does kind of hinge on it happening to some extent. So we'll see. The big 3 are off, says Bradley. Trying too hard to get back to where they want to be. They don't look like they're having fun or enjoying themselves. Yeah, I think they're kind of wearing it a little bit hard. That's probably fair. And Hunter said the bullpen for Memphis sold incredibly. Yeah, 11-1 after Bedell went 7 innings, no earned. It's kind of crazy. If it rains tomorrow, Lance Lynn is throwing a shutout. Is it supposed to rain? Don't tell me this while I'm live. I hate, and I'm sure the Cardinals hate too, all the rain that has just been timed during these homestands. Craziness. Yep, I see the radar. Y'all need a weather report. I got the KMOV weather app up. It's actually, I work for them, so I have to say this, but it's also true. Their weather app is awesome. I can go 24 hours on the radar. This is not an ad or anything, but it's great. It looks like the rain could kind of miss us tomorrow, folks. At least KMOV, it kind of comes in and maybe just kind of dissipates. So I'm going to hold my breath that we're not talking about any rain delays tomorrow, but we'll see. Asher asked if Arenado got booed. I was told that he did, and it sounded like the whole team got booed at the end of the game. They were all going, nude, because he was batting, and then he struck out looking, and it was like, nude, boo. And then the Cubs fans probably sang a song. Yeah, I wasn't there, so I can't say for sure, but I think Arenado, from what I understand, probably did get booed. Bass Fish for Live said, hey, B. Schaefer, Cardinals seem to finally be dropping where they should be. They will finish last place in the Central. This was never a good team, in my opinion. Can I say that word? I'm so, out on knowing slang, or if there's a word that I should say. Is that okay to say? Fugazi. I don't know what it means. I don't know the etymology. Something that has been forged or counterfeited. I just learned a word. Something fake, phony, or beyond repair. Fugazi. It kind of sounds like you have to say it like that. Is that kind of Italian-y? I don't know. Anyway, I don't necessarily agree with Bass Fish for Life on that. I think the Cardinals are still going to be a playoff team, but I get it. Brian wants the rain coming to West Virginia. They're in a drought, and they need the water so his grass doesn't die. There you go. Isn't tomorrow a makeup for a delay? It would be crazy if it got rained again. Well, yeah, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, tomorrow is the game that they banged the night Joe Buck was supposed to do the game. Remember that for Bally? And he and Chip Carey talked in the booth like they did a rain delay theater, and then they hung out for a while, and then they all went home. They never did play the game. So I think that's what this one is. I don't think it's going to rain tomorrow. Let's all do the anti-rain dance because they need to get this thing in. All-Star break coming up. Let's get those games in. No delays. That's what we're rooting for tomorrow. All right, guys, it's been a long stream. It's been a long pod. I appreciate your support. Check out, I'm going to plug everything. Check out the Discord. It's in the link to almost every video besides this one. Send me a DM. I'm at bschaefer12 on Twitter. DM me and say, what's the Discord? How do I get into it? If you want to know more about channel memberships, I'll help you out with that. If you're like, hey, I listen to the pod, but I hate the ads, I'll help you out with that. Spotify has a way to cancel the ads. It is a subscription, but you don't have to listen to ads on Spotify. Like, it's a thing. Only a couple people have taken advantage of it, but it's real if you like Spotify. So we got a lot going on. I appreciate all the support we're getting. We're working on some sponsorship stuff. If you have a business that you think wants to sponsor content like this, send them my way. But we're trying to do a little bit more of that so we can make this a thing. Andrew says, great show with Josh today. We should send you a free water bottle. Yeah, the Carrie and Moe's water bit that you guys do is very funny. Fugazi, Italian for fake. There you go, Intensity. Thank you. I learned something new today. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the show. Appreciate you guys for being here on the stream. Talk to you next time on Be Safe Daily Live. Peace.